All right, hello everyone. So this time we're going to go over two different assignments because they use the same technology that we're going to be using. So this is Canva. For those of you that don't know it, it is a design software. Now, I am going to be focusing significantly more on your creative writing content regarding it. The design is just an extra bit that's really important because you can add the visual impact. But please know, I'm not grading you on the design aspect. I'm really going to be focusing on your written aspects of it. So to do that, we're going to start with the comic assignment. So I'm going to start just by showing you, you don't have to create this from scratch. Canva does offer a lot of templates, and that's intentionally why I selected it. So you can see here, it even kind of has like a little template that you could follow. I don't mind if you follow this, that's okay. As I said, I'm really just looking for the kind of content you can bring here, not so much the design aspect, though it will be really cool to see. And as you can see here, it also includes, kind of different text styles and bubbles, thought bubbles, things like that. So an example of one I did, and this is relatively straightforward, but I'm going to go ahead and just go with the grading rubric. So looking at content, it's supposed to tell some kind of story, joke, or situation using a mix of visual and written elements. So as you can see here, in fact, let me see if I can put this up a little bit bigger for a second here. Okay. So we've got this kind of Halloween thing. As you can see, I have other visual element designs here, but all right, I've got conversation, who they're scared in here. Like here, I've got verbal dialogue happening between these two. I've got non-verbal where they're just kind of thinking, but you can tell there's an interaction taking place. They get scared and go. And as you can see, when it comes to the design, I used a lot of the same things, right? Like I didn't get too fancy. As you can see this, all I did was put a little white circle over that and then put a scary face on top of it. I'm not trying to do anything too crazy. I really just wanted to kind of have some fun with it. A lot of these are preset, so if you're looking under elements, you can actually look under my recently used. I use some of these for the graphic novel that I'll show you later. But as you can see, there's a lot you can select from, and when you have it, you can just pop it in. Again, I don't want anything too crazy. I want you to have fun with this, but I do want you also to focus on your story or your joke per se. So my joke obviously is these two kids decide they can't be scared. They do get scared, and then you find out these are actually the parents and that they have to pay for their therapy because they scared them so much. So that's kind of the joke. This is really simple. It's just 6 panes. I've got a little bit of context. I'm not looking for anything too crazy here. So as far as content goes, I'm going to give it a 5, right? It tells a joke. It's got a mix. It's good. The structure, using the minimum of the 6 panels. So as you can see, I did that here. Now that being said, if you talk to me beforehand and you want to do something that's only like 4 panels or 5 panels and it makes more sense with your setup, I'm willing to work with you with that and make exceptions. But the 6 panels, really simple, it's really standard. There's a lot you can work with there. And I don't want you to feel like rushed or if you need to try to fit more into one space. I'd rather have it more spread out. But again, you can always talk to me about it. So here, it follows 6 panels. It's presented a logical progression. Pretty straightforward. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not looking for anything too crazy. Just keep it as we've been doing the same with our narrative writing. You're going to follow in that chronological linear progression. So dialogue, as we talked before, I got verbal and nonverbal. Not that it matters. You can use either one. But here, it contains dialogue, and it does add to the joke in this case. Visual design, same thing. I'm just looking for you to use elements that kind of help to the creative aspect of it and help deliver the joke. So here it makes sense. There's costumes. They're getting scared. Scary people, scary costumes. Again, I'm not going to grade you too harshly on this. As long as you're using visual elements and they make sense with your story, you're going to get full marks here. I'd love for you to challenge yourselves and be a little more creative. And so I can show you in another pane in just a second what I did that has a little more design to it. But again, it's not a requirement per se unless you want to push yourself. And then the mechanics are really straightforward. Just don't make any errors. It's not too complicated. You can have someone look at it. I don't expect you to have a ton of dialogue, just enough to get by, and so it should have no spelling errors. But I am going to show you another example that I used, and this one is a little more complex. As you can see, there's a lot more elements. I had to kind of get creative. So like, as you can see with this guy, I had to change the colors so that they would match, because if you did the original colors when you're looking at them, they don't match. For here, I actually had to add a little blep. As you can see, it wasn't there before, but I thought it'd be funny to add it. I had to get really creative. I used a lot of different stuff. Sorry, it kind of looks a little out of whack here, but this one's really just about two parents who decide they want to watch football, and then they realize that they actually have a parent-teacher conference they have to go to, so they do a rock, paper, scissors to see who goes. Obviously, the mom wins, the dad loses, and she's going to be watching the game without him regardless, and he's surprised. This does have a lot of creative stuff. I had to do a lot of stuff where I would, as you can see here, I had to sort of fix the faces that I used before. In fact, this one is not the original faces you can see. It's actually originally was like a smiley face, and then I had to edit it. So again, I don't expect you guys to do this. I know this is a lot of extra work, but design is something I really like, and I feel like it helped add to some of the humor of the joke itself. So if this is something you want to do, absolutely feel free to go on ahead and do it. But if it's something you're not as comfortable with, please do not feel the need to make it complex. Keep it simple, keep it straightforward. Again, I'm really just looking for you guys to be able to understand how to write a comic and kind of what this looks like. So if you have any other questions, let me know. But please also note that if you decide you want to change up the sizes of these, you can. That's totally fine. You can either edit these directly, or you can go ahead and come to this elements. You can look for shapes. You can look for other graphics if you want to do like what I did and kind of add some candy corns and stuff if it's Halloween themed or Christmas themed. They've also got little stickers. Now, again, you're not going to get extra credit, but if it adds to your story and you think having this in there would look funny, go for it. I mean, this is all about being creative and having fun. So really embrace that creative side of you. Now, in that same vein, I'm also going to go ahead and look at the graphic novel rubric. Now, obviously, there's no way you're going to have time to create an entire graphic novel, nor would I expect you to do that. That's honestly just a lot of ludicrous, and it's not fair. So, instead, I'm going to show you kind of what I expect, which is a little more simplistic. This is something that you can do. So this is kind of a template of sorts. I did something a little different, but if you'll notice, I actually used a lot of the similar template stuff. So you're going to have that title page, which is included here under the structure. Sorry, let me pull this out a bit. So you'll have that minimum of one title page plus 3 to 4 pages that kind of tells your story. Your story does not have to be something super in depth. It does not have to follow the whole progression of having your intro, your kind of rise and climax action. You've got the climax itself. Don't worry about that. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. I'm really just wanting you to focus on ways to tell your story using the visual elements. So as you can see here, we've got a pretty straightforward title page. Here you could have something where you could put images in. As you can see, there's kind of an action box. Another panels I used. So I made one just called the Ninja Chronicles. I was just kind of goofy and fun with it because I saw these characters and I really liked them. So it's tag. So as you can see here, I didn't put a text thing. It's just kind of implied that he's sort of thinking or that no one will escape. He finds someone, says your mind, rushes to him. Gives it a second to load. Poof. See, I use that as kind of a creative way to show the action that, like, there's some kind of explosion of some kind and he just sort of popped up in the air and flew away. Doesn't know where he went. Keeps searching, finds someone else. He looks away, notices, tries to sneak off. They see each other. Boom, they've locked eye contact. They're going to go ahead and start this fight. And now I do include this, right? The ninja stars are obviously being thrown. He blocks them. There's some contact. Another poof, and he disappears. And he's furious about it. Again, this is not a super complex story, but as you can see, I try to use all the elements to kind of add to the story. We've got a lot of color that stands out. We've clearly got a ninja main character here, some other ninjas that are fighting. We've got the action scenes. We've got a linear progression where you can kind of see how it's going because it reads from left to right as you go. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. Again, it doesn't have to be this complex. You can do something more simplistic or more creative if you want, but this is really kind of what I'm looking for, and that's where I'm going to set the bar. Now, if I'm looking at this for grading-wise, all right, does it tell a complete story, or at least partial, right? And I think this one does. I think we've got a smaller story. We've got, he begins, he goes after 2 different people, he gets really frustrated, he can't do it. Now, sure, could it be longer? I suppose, but I'm really just showing this so you can see the minimum. As you can see, I've got 5 pages here, but you only need 3 to 4, so content-wise, it does tell a story using a mix. Structure-wise, we've got the minimum requirements, and it follows a linear progression. Dialogue, as you can see, we do have a mix here. So I have a bit of verbal dialogue here and here, if you want to count that. And I've got the nonverbal dialogue, obviously, and their interactions, especially in this one where nothing is said, but you can tell they're interacting. They're here to fight. They've got a conversation. They're fighting, and then he runs away. Same here. You can tell he's frustrated. It's not specifically dialogue, but it is a form of expression that I will still count, obviously. So I would agree. I think it looks conversational. It adds to the story. We're good there. Visual elements. Does each page contain visual elements that add to the story? Yep. And again, please, you don't need to overload it. As you can see, some of my pages might feel like there's a lot to it, but some of them are also very simple. I mean, this is literally just one graphic. But it's very effective. You know, you've clearly got a sense that he's frustrated with the way that it's set up. So again, don't go overboard. Try not to be too simplistic, but I'm really just looking for you to tell the story. I know I sound like a broken record, but that's because I really want to reiterate how important it is that I am not focusing on your visual talent. I'm focusing on your ability to use visual elements to tell the creative story. And then, of course, mechanics is just making sure that things are spelled right. I will give you some leeway, right? I mean, sound effects are sound effects. Ting is clearly a word that could be spelled different ways. Smack, you could use whap, whack, whatever you want to do, poof. So I'm not going to mark you down for sound effects, but when you do have dialogue, I will at least want to see that it's there, right? Like here, I can't quite tell if you put the apostrophe, but if I were to zoom in, I see it. So you're not going to get marked down. Little stuff like that. Now, this all being said, I know I have a lot of visual elements here. For those of you that are very artsy or prefer to be hands-on, it is okay if you would prefer to do either A, you can do your own drawings, upload them, and put them into Canva. So you can do that under uploads. You could draw something, take a picture, scan it, and then you could upload it. As you can see, I have a few things that I either cropped or edited and uploaded for sake of ease. And then you can add it to this as well. That's totally fine. Or if you're having issues with your computer or you've reached out to me beforehand and you would prefer to do it by hand, I will accept that. However, the finished product will either need to have pictures or scans so that you can upload it onto our class site / into the web portfolio, which I'll show later. So I hope that makes a lot of sense. Again, for those of you that are extra fancy, you can draw and do stuff, but it's not as effective as some of the other softwares out there. But I'd like to reiterate one last time, like the broken record I am truly trying to focus on your creative content. I really want you to tell a story. I want it to be linearly structured and make sense. I want there to be dialogue. And then I just want you to use the visual elements to support your story, but they are not the main focus. Same with the comic. It's going to be very similar. Again, you could have something more simplistic. You can have something with a lot more depth. But I'm really just looking for a clever joke story or situation. I'm not going to be grading you harshly on your ability to utilize the visuals per se. I hope that answers a lot of your questions. I know that as we dive into it, I'll provide more tutorials. We'll actually kind of work through and I'll show you how to do some of these when we're a bit closer. But I wanted to give you an overview in a sense. So if this is something you wanted to at least play with and get started on, you can. And also kind of put people's minds at ease knowing that I am not grading you on your ability to use the software. A lot of this can be done either offline or it can be done in a way that still works and is effective that doesn't use a lot of technical know-how. All right, I hope everyone has a great day.